life. That's what I see. I see all kinds of life. I see marine life. I see life that brings more life, but it also brings human life. And also I see a past out there as well. I see history, and I see a future. And to be honest with you, when I see the bay on a day like today, I see a hopeful future.
A living shoreline is a shoreline management practice that uses green techniques such as native plantings and oyster reefs to help control erosion and also protect, restore, and enhance coastal shoreline habitat.
So here in Tampa Bay, the shoreline, a living shoreline, is incredibly important to the health of the ocean, the water, the fish, the oysters, everything that lives here, and the people as well. And this means not just the water, but it means the mangroves, the seagrass beds, the oysters that filter the water and keep it clean. All together, they create the ecosystem that is Tampa Bay.
But a living shoreline, those mangroves, those marshes, those seagrass beds and oyster beds, they keep things intact. They prevent erosion. They help tame intense water, storm surges. They are great buffers against storm surges. But they are also nursery and habitat for all kinds of marine life, both that lives permanently near the shore, but also a lot of marine life that ends up spending most of its life offshore. And in addition to being these nurseries and habitats and these storm buffers, they are fantastic carbon sinks. They don't emit carbon, they absorb carbon out of the water and out of the air.
Yeah, we call these coastal habitats blue carbon habitats because they're so good at sequestering carbon from the atmosphere. They do it at a much higher rate than those other habitats, those rainforests and even upland forests. So mangroves and salt marshes and even oysters are critically important to pulling out that CO2 from the atmosphere and sequestering it either in their woody structures or in the mud itself that they happen to be living in.
One of the things here in Tampa Bay and all around the world we're dealing with is climate change. And here we have to worry about sea level rise, which can increase surge and the impacts and destruction of mangroves. You can bring salt water into places that don't do well with salt. We have to worry about flooding. We have a huge problem now with extreme weather events and more flooding. So climate change is a real issue. You also have, of course, rising sea temperatures and what's called ocean acidification. And that's because with more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, more is being absorbed into the ocean. And that means its pH is going down or its acidity is going up. And that's not good for things like shellfish. So climate change is a big worry for us here in Tampa Bay.
Back in the 1980s, restoration was just getting started, and there was a real need by the community to take an active role in restoring and protecting Tampa Bay. We quickly appreciated the desire by the community to get involved with restoring and protecting the bay and created Tampa Bay Watch in 1993 to provide the conduit for community involvement in the restoration of the bay. Tampa Bay Watch started in the early 1990s by working with the community mostly after work and on weekends. But it was quickly apparent that we needed to work with people during the week in order to grow our restoration programs. The obvious choice was to start interacting with the schools to get the kids involved with restoration projects. So rather rapidly, we started to go into the schools and developed a program called Bay Grasses in Classes, where the kids could grow the salt marsh grasses that we then would use for large-scale coastal restoration projects around the bay. So that was our early education program, and as that grew, we started to use the schools more for oyster restoration projects, and as we developed the Cunningham Key Tierra Verde site, we now are able to bring school kids down to the shores of Tampa Bay to run our education programs as well.
So with the Living Shoreline program, it's something that we definitely utilize teaching about within our Estuary Adventures program. We are dealing with students that are typically in early elementary to middle school, so they're not necessarily understanding the kind of concept of a living shoreline. So how we approach it is we talk a little bit more about what the importance of the estuary is, the habitats within the estuary, and then what our restoration team is doing at Tampa Bay Watch to kind of create those living shorelines when they go in to a restoration site and perform a restoration project.
We're able to see the restoration of the bay in a very short amount of time. So by involving the community, having them work with the government in order to do large-scale restoration has really made a difference. And if you look around the country, there's very few coastal bodies of water that are able to say, because of what we've done for the last 20, 30 years in the bay, we're able to see such dramatic improvements in water quality and fish and wildlife resources responding to those improvements. It's huge, and it's really a wonderful story to be able to share.
One of the great successes here in Tampa Bay is the number of organizations and individuals that are now playing a role in restoring Tampa Bay and protecting it for the future. Without institutions, organizations, nonprofits, even the state, and everybody who comes out to volunteer, it would be very hard to do or create the magnitude of work that is needed to restore Tampa Bay and protect it for the future.
I'm very blessed and lucky to grow up here, born and raised here in Pinellas County, and to see our destination attain the status it has with the #1 beach of America 2 years running. It's so exciting and rewarding to know that we have our community behind this effort to maintain the clean waters that we have here in Tampa Bay and the Gulf of Mexico.
One of the wonderful things that I've come to realize in working with this organization is while there are many things in this world that seek to divide us, I have found something in our area that has been a unifier, and that is the commitment of many people to be a part of saving our environment here in the Tampa Bay area.
The Discovery Center provides that opportunity to showcase the different types of restoration projects around the bay and what individuals and groups can do in their own backyards to help improve those environmental conditions. So whether you live locally or you come from out of state, you'll see the story of the success of restoring Tampa Bay and hopefully take those lessons back home to where you come from and know that if you start and you work in a strategic manner, you can make a difference in your own community to better protect and improve the environment.
If we let nature take care of itself, rather than us trying to manage it, the benefits to us are greater than they are if we do try to manage that environment. I'm not talking about simply harming the environment. I'm talking about trying to take control, benign control of the environment. But that often backfires against us. The benefits are much greater when we leave nature alone.